Hey kids, this is Eric Miller here with a quick P15 update. The gun has been doing very well, no problems to speak of. However, I'd like to talk a little bit about holsters. So I purchased this gun very early on. It was in the very first batch of guns that KelTec produced. So when I went to look for a holster, my options were very limited. There was basically only the rounded and the aggressive concealment holster available. So I got the aggressive concealment one because it was half the price of the rounded holster, and it also came with an optic cut. Now, for the rest of this video, I'm going to refer to aggressive concealment as AG. So the holster, the AG holster was doing fine right up until I was outside one day and I was doing something and it was hot and I got sweaty. And I found out that this screw right here was rusty because of my horrible, filthy, sweaty body that was touching it. And I found out that by looking at it, oh no, this holster does not cover that screw. Also, I noticed this screw up here, and there's just a little bit of rust also on the rear sight block also. So everything here that's basically touching my skin, yeah, was getting a little bit rusty. Now, as a side note, the barrel and the slide are perfectly rust-free. In this very humid environment that I live in, most of the P15s I've seen have a nitrided slide, but I have this much less common phosphated kind of finish on my slide, but it's doing fine so far, shockingly. Anyway, rusty screws are no good, so I looked around for a holster that did cover that screw in the back. And the rounded holster was the pick that I made. So a while back, I had run across this other holster in a store, and then I pooped my pants at seeing the price, so the rounded holster was the choice. Now, since I have both of these holsters here, I thought we would compare the two and discuss the positives and negatives of both of them. So let's start with the aggressive concealment holster. This one is less expensive and it is offered with an optic cut with no upcharge. Sweet. Putting aside the fact that KelTec still hasn't released the optic mounts for the P15, this is still pretty good. It's future-proof. I was also able to get this version with the fake carbon fiber finish on it with no upcharge. And the texture on it, I really like. It feels very nice up against your skin. Now, a note about this specific holster. As I mentioned, I got this gun and holster fairly early, and I have seen pictures of the same holster that were made more recently, and it seems that AG did fix this problem. Also, this weird shape on it right here isn't on the newer holsters either. My holster, being a lefty holster, might have been literally the very first one that AG ever made. So I think we can give it a little bit of a pass for being slightly wonky. The downsides from my point of view are that, of course, this screw and the rear sight block are exposed, which they seem to have fixed. And this clip doesn't quite angle as far as I'd like it to, but it's not terrible. And the one thing I'm also not sure about, which we'll discuss in a bit, is the thickness of this plastic. It is a millimeter or two thicker than the rounded holster, and that has some positives and negatives to which we'll look at. So now we'll look at the rounded holster. This one was a bit more expensive, and because I wanted a left-handed version, I couldn't get it from KelTec's website. They're selling them there on KelTec's website now. So, but they only sell right-handed ones on KelTec's website. What are you doing, KelTec? So I had to go directly to Rounded to get it. Now, a version with an optic cut is also not available at the time of recording, which is anyway. Also, a fake carbon fiber version is available, but at a $3 upcharge, which is not ridiculous. But now that I have this one, I wish I had spent the extra $3. Honestly, the texture is just so much nicer than the texture that I got. As for the positives, the clip does angle just a little bit more, just a couple more degrees, which I like. This screw is also covered right there, as is the rear sight block. As I mentioned, the plastic is also noticeably thinner than that of the AG holster. The plastic on the rounded holster is so much thinner that it weighs 0.4 ounces or 10 grams less than the AG holster. So let's discuss the ups and downs here. I mean, the rounded holster is noticeably thinner while I'm wearing it. I mean, no joke, for real, it feels thinner. However, the thinner plastic also appears to make for sharper edges from the body of the gun, which are also more noticeable when wearing it. The AG holster, with its thicker plastic, has much softer edges and softer corners than the aggressive concealment one does. So even though the AG holster feels a little bulkier when wearing it, just because the thicker plastic, it is also a bit more comfortable because you don't have sharp edges jutting into you. I'm going to take the clips off here just for a minute so we can take a look at these holsters without the clips on. And I'm going to talk about something kind of weird that it only seems to affect the left-handed. So right-handed people maybe will never know this. Okay, so for some odd reason, on the rounded holster, the left side of the gun is replicated on both sides of the holster. For example, this channel here is only intended to make way for the slide stop, which of course is only on the left side of the gun. It shouldn't be on this side of the gun. So in my case, it would only be under the clip. As we can see here on the aggressive concealment holster, this huge channel here, it's not on this side. So only people who are incorrectly right-handed should have this or this digging into their side, and not the correctly left-handed people such as myself. So I feel like I got a little cheated there by having this get stuck on the other side of the gun. I don't know why that happened. So this is maybe another downside to the aggressive concealment holster that I, as a lefty, was not aware of. The channel here for the slide release is 3 times the size it needs to be, and will probably be a serious annoyance for anyone who is right-handed out there trying to use this. Now, before we leave this subject of these holsters, I want to tell you I've received some information from a viewer. Now, I've heard a few people making some loud complaints about Rounded, the company, online. However, I have received some information about aggressive concealment that I would like to share with you just for, the sake of the community. Now, this is super complicated. I mean, it's ridiculous. But so I'm going to try and streamline and simplify this as much as I can. But I'm sorry, you're just going to have to stick with me here. So a customer in Texas purchased a P15 holster from Aggressive Concealment in about January of this year. And it seems to me, or it seems, that there was a huge known issue of U.S. mail having problems being delivered in Texas, in 2023, which would include going into January of 2024. So Aggressive Concealment admitted to this fact that the USPS was having major problems in Texas in their emails to this customer. So several weeks went by after the customer made this order, and the customer emailed Aggressive Concealment multiple times and requested that they send him another holster via FedEx or UPS, since his holster, it appeared to have been lost in the US mail, though it was not officially listed as such just yet. He also offered to return the extra holster if it ever shows up, if they would only send him a return shipping label. So AG says they need to print out that the customer needs to print out the label, and he says he doesn't have a printer, which is actually not that uncommon. I don't have a printer either. I have to print stuff out at work. I mean, as I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. And there's a lot of back and forth between AG and this customer. And this is where good customer service can sink or save your business. Aggressive Concealment chose to sink and lost their cool at this customer, starting off by telling him that his state, Texas, is a debacle. Of course, he says that in the context of talking about shipping issues. The problem is that the only option that Aggressive Concealment had on their website at the time was to ship through U.S. mail. They had no other, UPS or FedEx options. So the customer was kind of stuck at that point, and AG tells him that it was his, meaning the customer's UPS or USPS, that effed up the delivery, as if the customer owned the U.S. mail for some reason. The customer asked AG to stop swearing at them. Otherwise, he will post this conversation online, and so that everyone can see how unprofessional they are. Given the chance to calm down, AG leans into their aggressive strategy and calls the customer an internet tough guy and threatens a defamation lawsuit, and then claims the customer is trying to get a holster for free and playing games and etc. Oh man. Anyway, I've read this whole email exchange, and it's ridiculous. Oh man. The customer was firm, but I think fair in his requests, though I probably would have waited a little bit longer to start asking for a replacement. But I mean, that's just me. I don't think that the customer was doing anything like ridiculous or out of line here. So he contacted AG after the package was a week late and waited another 2 more weeks and 2 more emails before asking for a replacement. So AG just went nuts. They say sending a replacement holster is a $20 charge they're unwilling for the business to absorb, and they're doing what's best for their business by refusing his request. Now, that may be true in that that's what's best for their business, but that's not what you tell a customer, and it's not how you do customer service. Now, even if the customer had been wildly unreasonable with their request, which you're going to get people who are just flat out crazy if you're selling anything, that's just the way it is. You can't choose your customers. This is not how you do this. So even if, here's what you do instead. The response AG should have sent was, number 1, an apology, and number 2, they say very nicely that they will have to wait for UPS or USPS to come back to them and tell them that their package is actually lost before they're able to make a refund/replacement. I mean, that's not complicated. Now, I'm not going to tell you who to buy from or who to not buy from. You're an adult, take responsibility for your own decisions. As for me, I think I'll probably be avoiding certain aggressively named companies in the future. So for now, I've retired the Aggressive Concealment holster, though I think it's mostly fine. I've also reconsidered putting an optic on this gun too, even if KelTec releases the covers. Just these sights are just so freaking fantastic. I don't want to weigh down this poor little gun with an extra optic, at least not for now. Anyway, tell me what kind of holsters have been working and how holsters have not been working for you in the comments. Anyway, stay safe, have fun, kids.